Hello everyone, my name is Junior Alfonso and today I will be presenting on anonymity's role in freedom of expression in the digital age. This topic is important because so much communication now happens online. People use the internet to talk about politics, identity, social problems, personal experiences, and criticism of powerful institutions. Because of that, the question of whether people should be able to speak anonymously matters more than ever. My main argument is that anonymity usually strengthens freedom of expression because it protects people from retaliation, fear, and pressure. At the same time, anonymity should not mean there are no rules. The best system is one that protects anonymous lawful speech while still punishing harmful behavior like threats, harassment, stalking, and fraud. This issue matters now because freedom of expression is not only about what the law says, it is also about whether people actually feel safe enough to speak. As the slide shows, UNESCO reported a global decline in freedom of expression, and journalists' self-censorship increased. That matters because it shows that fear can silence people even before direct censorship happens. So this debate is not only about privacy, it is really about who feels safe enough to participate in public discussion. If speaking openly can lead to punishment, harassment, or surveillance, many people will choose to stay quiet. This is why anonymity can matter so much. It can give people a way to speak when otherwise they would remain silent. Anonymity can strengthen expression in several ways. First, it protects vulnerable people. This includes whistleblowers, workers, criticizing employers, victims of abuse, and political dissidents. For these people, using their real name can bring serious consequences. Second, it makes it easier to speak honestly about sensitive issues like trauma, abuse, sexuality, religion, or politics. Third, it reduces fear. When people feel safer, they are more willing to share ideas, criticisms, or experiences that they would otherwise hide. So overall, anonymity can protect the message when the speaker is at risk. It can make public discussion more honest by allowing more people to participate. At the same time, anonymity has real harms. Critics argue that harassment, dogpiling, and abuse are easier when people feel untraceable. They also argue that misinformation can spread more easily when accountability is weaker. Another problem is that targets of abuse may end up silencing themselves. So in some situations, anonymity can protect one person's speech while making someone else feel unsafe enough to leave the conversation. This is the strongest counterargument, and it is a serious one. But I do not think these harms justify removing anonymity completely. If anonymity disappears for everyone, then many truthful and lawful voices will disappear too. So the better solution is not total exposure. The better solution is accountability for harmful content. The United States is an example of a country where anonymity is generally protected in principle. As the slide explains, there are no federal laws fully restricting online anonymity, and anonymous expression is still protected in many contexts. However, there are also pressure points. State-level child safety and age verification laws can weaken anonymity by requiring identity checks or personal data collection. So in the US, anonymity still exists, but newer regulations show how it can be narrowed even without a total ban. That means freedom can remain in theory while becoming weaker in practice. China represents a much more restrictive model. The slide explains that self-media accounts with over 500,000 followers were required to display real names. Some users closed their accounts after that rule was announced. That reaction matters because it shows a chilling effect. When people know their identity will be exposed, some decide it is safer not to speak at all. The research in the slide also found that mandatory real name identification led to less informative posts and more vague language. So forced identification did not just reduce harmful speech, it also reduced honest and valuable speech. This shows how strong identity rules can weaken public discussion. When comparing the United States and China, the contrast is clear. The US still protects anonymity more in principle, even though that protection is under pressure. China ties identity to speech more directly, and the result is more caution and weaker discussions. The bigger lesson is that identity rules shape how open and honest public debates become. When people know they can easily be traced, they often become less direct and less willing to challenge power. So, anonymity is not just a personal preference, it can affect the health of public discussion in an entire country. Excuse me. This issue also has social, legal, and ethical sides. Socially, anonymity can help victims, dissidents, and whistleblowers participate, but it can also make abuse easier and push others out of the conversation. Legally, the challenge is balance. Society should protect anonymous lawful speech while still responding to threats, stalking, fraud, and serious harassment. Ethically, this presentation uses utilitarianism. Utilitarianism asks which policy creates the most overall good and the least overall harm. From that point of view, the best answer is not complete anonymity and not complete identification. The best answer is a balanced system that protects anonymous speech when it helps participation, but punishes harmful conduct when it causes predictable harm. That leads to the best policy response. First, protect pseudonyms. People should be able to speak under names that are not their real identity, especially on sensitive or controversial topics. Second, focus enforcement on behavior. The real problem is not anonymity itself. The real problem is threats, doxing, stalking, fraud, and coordinated abuse. Third, use due process. Serious enforcement should be transparent and based on clear rules. Fourth, only reveal identity in rare cases involving credible threats or real legal necessity. This approach protects freedom of expression while still taking abuse seriously. This framework works because it keeps honest but risky speech alive, while also recognizing the real harms of online abuse. It also matches the idea that platforms have a moral duty to moderate wrongful speech. In other words, platforms should not ban anonymity completely, but they also should not ignore threats and harassment. Most importantly, this system targets conducts instead of assuming anonymity itself is the problem. That makes it more balanced and more fair. To conclude, anonymity plays an important role in freedom of expression in the digital age. It helps people speak when exposure could lead to retaliation, stigma, surveillance, or fear. That is why anonymity matters. It gives people room to participate when they might otherwise stay silent. At the same time, anonymity can be abused. This is why it should be paired with moderation, due process, and narrow exceptions for serious harm. The comparison between the United States and China shows that identity rules strongly shape how honest and public discussion becomes. My final position is that anonymity should be protected as an option for lawful speech, but it should never mean freedom from consequences or for harmful actions. My final takeaway is simple. The best system protects anonymous lawful speech while using transparent rules to punish harmful conduct. Thank you.